sponsorship in F1, James, out of interest? Or crypto in general?
It's not that many anymore, sadly.
No.
Yeah. They've all
Remember the
bust
golf days of
already.
2021, James?
No,
I was
Who's
big
your favourite,
into
James?
I was big into the JPEGs. What were they called? When you could just buy a picture.
Oh, the
and it was like
NFTs.
NFTs. Yeah, that was the real peak of cryptocurrency for me.
Really, cryptocurrency is a different type of.
Well,
you still got your ape.
Different
Is
type
that
of
what you're saying?
vehicle.
yeah. Still got my ape. Still got my Logan
Hodling
Paul
it.
coin or whatever the fuck that was. Like,
yeah.
What's the McLaren one? OKX, is that their one?
OKX is an exchange.
Yeah. Oh, is it an exchange?
I think they all, the ones that are left, they all are, I believe. There's still Bybit on the Red Bull.
Yes.
And I think Mercedes is still sponsored by Solara, which I think is a coin.
Are Aston still sponsored by Crypto.com?
I don't think so.
Rip.
I miss the FTX Mercedes days. What happened to them? They just disappeared all of a sudden.
What happened? Where did they go?
Yeah. Sad.
You hate it when that sort of thing just happens.
I am going to love you and leave you too. Thank you for joining me for the Austrian Grand Prix build-up. We'll be live again next weekend for the Silverstone build-up. The Great British Grand Prix.
I might
we should do a
bet
on
to that, not on the stream.
Who will judge our nails,
British
Mr. V? Our painted nails. Who will judge that if you're not there?
I can join as an advisor, I suppose, in the background, but it should be 3 other people, not me.
We'll paint our nails, and then we'll do other British things, is what we'll do.
Other British things? You're going to climb a lamppost and put a flag at the top. Anyway, we need to go. I want to make some lunch before the race starts.
Let's go.
See you soon. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye. Hello. The Not Applicable channel. Or NA James channel, I should say. How are we feeling? How are we doing? There we go. I'm just checking that the chat is now working, that we are over here as well. I think so. God, it is warm. I've been live for 2 hours over on the Crash Happy podcast. If you haven't seen before, we do a couple of hours pre-race stream where we discuss various topics, play some games before the Austrian Grand Prix, and we will be live once again for the Silverstone Grand Prix as well. Are we still live on Crash Happy? Possibly, but I can do nothing about that. So hopefully one of Pulse or Mr. V will stop that at some point. If they don't, we'll just see. We'll just see. It'll be fine. I can stop it from one side, I guess. Actually, let me do that. They will not do that? Probably not. It's fine. It's fine. It will just be a blank screen. And I feel like some people need that. Some of the Crash Happy members probably just need a blank screen to look at to just calm down. To just calm down and have a think about what's happening. There we go. We are certainly live. We are certainly here. We are ready to go. Let's quickly remind ourselves of our predictions, because they've got a possibility of coming true, depending on how this race goes. I mean, it's always the case, but I feel like they've definitely got quite an opportunity to come through. My favorite thing with this stream is trying to line up the YouTube lag with broadcast. Yeah, YouTube just has like an inbuilt 20-second delay, if you don't know. If you don't want there to be as much of a delay, you can join the live stream over on Twitch. I think Twitch has a slightly smaller delay. So there you go. Try to purchase your soul. 4 years of membership does get you a bit of my soul, to be fair. That is, I feel like maybe not the whole soul as was being auctioned off, but you can certainly have a share of the soul. Use Twitch in front of YouTube. There you go. There you go. Twitch is there. Should be live on Twitch too. In fact, I don't think I've changed the title on Twitch from qualifying. I was in a bit of a rush this morning before the Crash Happy stream. Actually, really nice Crash Abbey stream, though. Feel like it went well. Some live feedback. Feel like it was a good one. There we go. We are there. We are live. As a Leclerc fan, I'm always a little mad seeing my predictions. Look, it's not me. It's not my predictions. It is the community's predictions. You can put Charles Leclerc P1, but if the majority of people disagree with you, unfortunately, the predictions go with the majority. You guys predicted Kimi Antonelli to win from P4, and with the pace that he showed last time out, certainly there. Oh, thank you for the 100 bits. Hello, Mr. The Jame. Always love the F1 commentator. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. But yeah, you anticipate a little Kimi Antonelli coming out on top with Hamilton and Russell just behind in second and third. Max Verstappen, your surprise package. I mean, he's starting inside the top 5, Max Verstappen. Is a podium a surprise? Would that be good enough for Max Verstappen to say that that's a surprisingly good weekend? Could have certainly started maybe on the front row of the grid had he not had that slight mistake, slight mishap at the end of qualifying. Best team, you've got Mercedes. I feel like they've locked in that position. And then in terms of the struggle, you've got Charles Leclerc. I can understand it. He's had 2 or 3 weekends in a row now that haven't really gone his way inside of that Ferrari car. Lewis Hamilton has got the better of him and has been on the podium and even got that first win for Ferrari this season as well. It would be very Charles Leclerc to put it in the gravel or be wiped out by Liam Lawson or something crazy. It would be very Charles Leclerc to definitely have that struggle come true. And then your flop team, Aston Martin, for the weekend as well. When it comes to this week, we are at the Austrian Red Bull Ring. Tyres that are available. I think this is where it could get quite interesting. I think the majority of drivers will go for a 2-stop. I think the 2-stop strategy is the stronger strategy overall. And I can see a lot of the teams just going 2-stop strategy, get it done. That's the way it is. But we've got an opportunity for maybe a 3-stop, especially if there's a safety car or virtual safety car at just the right time to play into the team's favor. I could see a 3-stop if there's something that happens just the right time. And it's can we get that? And also then, if it is one of the Ferraris or one of the Mercedes that goes for a little bit of an out there stop, how that then progresses as the race goes on. I think Ferrari in a good position. I know the Mercedes are very strong. I know the Mercedes race pace here should be very good, but I don't know, I've just got a feeling. Maybe it's just because I'm on the Lewis Hamilton hype train, but I'm certainly there right now, and I'm just I've got a feeling that Ferrari might be able to do something. I've got a feeling that Max Verstappen might be able to pull something out of the bag as well. Do I think Lando Norris and McLaren? Maybe not, just because they always seem to just throw it in the bin. There'll be some kind of problem inside of that Mercedes car, but they're the tyre compounds we're working with. They are the softest compounds available. We'll have to wait and see if anybody does go for a 3-stop over a 2-stop. I think the 2-stop will be the optimal, maybe even a 1-stop, depending on how the tyre degradation is. But the tyre degradation was very high in Spain. It was very hot. I think it's even hotter track temperature here. Let me have a little look. Track temperature 46.8 degrees Celsius. It's going to be close. It's going to be close to whether the 1, 2, 3 stops kind of play into various cars' favour. Most important question of the weekend. Do I agree with Crofty that the track looks like a whale? Let's have a little look. Looks like a whale. Oh, okay. Yeah. So with the tail being sector 2, I guess, at the top there. And then the head kind of being turns 9 and 10. Turn 10 being the mouth. Is that where we're at? A little bit of a whale. I feel like if turn 1 was more smooth, look a little bit more whale-like. But I do get what you mean. I do get what you mean. I can see a whale there. Is this more whale or is Vegas more pig? Which one looks more like the animal in question that they've got? Hamilton 3-stop loading. That's what I mean. I feel like Hamilton could do it again, right? Hamilton could just go for a 3-stop. Did in Spain. Worked out in Spain. Obviously got the virtual safety car just at the right time. Vegas is hardcore dead pig. Yeah, now you've seen it, you'll never unsee it. It does look like a whale for you, Sally, as well. There you go. I hadn't ever actually thought about it, but I guess it does kind of, yeah, look like a whale. Can see the tail. A little bit of a Sector 3 head on the whale. Where'd the blowhole go? Like turn 8, maybe? Turn 8 being a little blowhole at the top there. You can see it. Vegas is clearer as a pig. More pig than this whale. Okay. What other tracks look like animals? Let us know in the chat. Go through all 24 circuits. What niche animals can you get to fit inside of a track? Maybe that could be... Oh, that could be like a really fun section in like a random quiz, you know. What animal does this track look like? Or a Mr. V video where he goes, which animals make the best tracks? Could definitely be. Blowhole is where Verstappen went off. Well, the blowhole's where... not quite. I was going to say the blowhole's where the rear wing was still open and there was like the hole there. But I think that was a little bit further on down the straight, wasn't it? Because he went off at the end of turn 9. But close. Very close. Monza is a goose. Okay. Miami is a crocodile. I'm not... okay. We're getting wild out there. I'm going to write down which animals are tracks, though. Because I feel like if I did like a quiz for the guys and put in that as one of the rounds, they would be very upset. But I would be very entertained. So, and that's really what I make the videos for. Spa is a bird. Right, I think we've gone left. We've jumped the shark. Let's have a little look at the qualifying board before we get into qualifying. We're about 15 minutes out from the start of the race itself. George Russell starts on pole. Controversially, for some people, I would say just did a really good job, to be honest with you. Miami is a gator. Ow. Right, I'll write it down. I've written it down. Spa looks like a pterodactyl. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking as well, Sarah. Good Jeopardy category. Very good Jeopardy category. But let's talk about George Russell, that yellow flag infringement that was not to be. I think it's a weird one. I called it on the stream yesterday. You can go back to the stream. I assumed it would have just been a straight double yellow flag, to be honest with you. Like, I even slightly misinterpreted how the FIA and Formula One yellow flags, double yellow flags kind of work, and how the various stewards and people involved actually put those together. So for me, straight away on the stream, I thought, oh, he's gone a little bit too quick through there. I thought also it would be double waved yellows because Verstappen was still on the track, but that's not the case. If Verstappen is far enough away from the track, then it only has to be single waved yellows until the marshals then come onto the track. And the double waved yellows usually come out when the marshals are on the track as well. So it's all to do with like safety, first and foremost, but also to do with where and how things are positioned on the track as well. And therefore, I think when it comes to the single yellows being waved, then the double yellows coming out 30 seconds later is weird. But it is the way that the rules are written. And unfortunately, for Kimi Antonelli fans who kind of lost their minds a little bit over it, and also Ferrari fans who are hoping for a pole position, George Russell played it by the letter of the law. Like, he played it exactly the way that the Formula One interpret their own laws that they have written. So therefore, you kind of have to give it to them. You have to give it to him. Yeah, you have to give it to George Russell. He's done a very good job at just doing exactly what the rules say, lifted off enough, showed that he was in control of the car, because it's all to do with safety, control, making sure that you're showing that you are on top of the car effectively. he slowed down enough to show that he was in control of the car and was managing the car through the corner. Of course, that little bit of a lift then gives him an extra little bit of a boost to work on as well. He gets an extra bit of battery coming out of the corner, which is an interesting one as well. But George Russell, he did it. He got there, starts on pole position. Nothing the drivers can do about it now, nothing that we can do about it now, other than look at George Russell at the front row of the grid and think about what he's going to be able to do from that position moving forwards. He's got Charles Leclerc for company. A lot of people saying, well, obviously Charles Leclerc or Lewis Hamilton will be leading through turn one because of that boost that the Ferrari engine has coming off of the start line. But I don't think it's absolutely guaranteed anymore because Ferrari are not quite as fast off the line compared to the rest of the field as they used to be. A lot of the teams have kind of managed it now, obviously with the blue lights that we get just before the start as well, helping out everyone else get their turbo up to or spinning before they then launch. The Ferrari advantage off the start has dwindled as the season has progressed. They have got their new engine inside of that, or at least an updated Ferrari engine inside of that car as well. I think it's 50-50 as to whether Ferrari will get like an absolutely blistering start or Mercedes will be able to match them, and actually George Russell, Charles Leclerc will likely be side by side more than anything else. I don't think Charles Leclerc will be blistering ahead of George Russell unless they've managed to find something like even more impressive than they had at the beginning of the season with like the turbo or how they've set up the car and set up the engine to launch it. Then just behind though, they have got Hamilton and Antonelli. Again, we're thinking about what they can do from there. Hamilton coming off the back of his last win. Hamilton's been on the podium 3 races in a row. Is the closest to Kimi Antonelli in terms of the Drivers' Championship at the moment as well. So Hamilton's certainly looking potent inside of that Ferrari car. Starts in 3rd place. Antonelli rounds out the Ferrari-Mercedes front 2 rows. A little bit disappointed. A little bit of a mistake from Kimi Antonelli, has to be said. Obviously, just interpret it as double yellows. Like, I don't think it's that massive of a problem, and it's not like it cost him a ridiculous amount. He's still starting on the 2nd row of the grid. It's not like he's starting P10 or something. You know, if it was dramatic and really cost him, it's cost him a little bit. I still think he'll be able to have some battles with George Russell. I still think the 2 Mercedes cars will be close enough to one another at some point during the Grand Prix that will play into it, and we'll kind of get to wait and see again if Kimi Antonelli has got the better pace inside of the 2 Mercedes cars. Certainly had the better pace in that final stint, did Kimi Antonelli last time out in Barcelona compared to George. Does he have that on George again this weekend? Can George keep him behind? I think we'll see some battling, but I do think it's going to be quite tough for Kimi Antonelli to get ahead of George Russell. Oh, thank you for the gifted subscription over on Twitch as well. If you aren't subscribed to the channel over on YouTube, it's completely free. If you want to subscribe over on Twitch, that also massively helps out the channel. You can also become a channel member on YouTube. You can join the Crash Happy Patreon. There's loads and loads of different ways that you can get extra content and get involved in helping out everyone that is involved in the not applicable Crash Happy universe that we have got currently going on. How much longer until the race starts? We are about 8 minutes away from the start of the race. We are getting ever closer. Max Verstappen, after his spin, starts in 5th place. So the Red Bull of Max Verstappen, probably again, similar to Kimi Antonelli, was improving. Could maybe have seen himself a couple of positions higher. Like, I think Verstappen would have probably ended up, say Kimi Antonelli, Verstappen, and Russell obviously all finished their flying laps without Verstappen's incident happening. I still think Russell would have got pole, obviously, still got pole anyway. But I think maybe Antonelli, Verstappen would have been on the front row / 3rd place. So maybe Verstappen could have been 2nd or 3rd quickest. But again, hasn't cost him too much, that problem. And therefore, starting from 5th place, Max Verstappen, we'll kind of see what he can do from there. Then we've got Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri, sort of duo of McLaren cars. It's so tough with reliability. Like, I just assume that one of those two probably won't make it to the end of the Grand Prix, I think is where we're kind of at with the McLaren cars. I don't think Lando Norris has had a weekend yet without some form of problem in either free practice qualifying or the Grand Prix. Like, I don't think he's had a race weekend yet where everything has gone seamless. So maybe this is the one, right? Lando Norris is brilliant around here. It's one of his better tracks, maybe arguably his best track on the Formula One calendar, Lando Norris. I could see him doing very, very well if the McLaren car works for the entirety of the Grand Prix. So we'll kind of have to wait and see on that one. And even if it gets to like lap 65, we're getting to the point where I just don't trust the McLaren car to definitely make it all the way to the end, which is a shame. Oscar Piastri starting just behind. Same kind of thing could be said for him, although Piastri not quite as quick as Lando Norris around the Red Bull Ring, in my opinion. So I think Piastri starting from 7th place will be interesting to see what he can do from there. Can he keep up with Norris? Like, Norris has definitely had the better race pace in recent weekends. So I think that the challenge almost for Piastri in that is, can he keep up with Lando Norris this time around? Can he stick with his teammate and sort of find a little bit of form again? Because Piastri's been a little bit off of it since Japan, really, you could say. I don't think Piastri's had a great race. Just looking at it, Miami, Canada, Monaco, Spain. No, I don't think Piastri's had a great race since Japan, to be honest with you, off the top of my head. Then we've got Isaac Hadjar rounding out the top 8, as you would expect. Oh, the 100 bits again. Thank you. How many firstborns, not fistborns, firstborns do I have to sacrifice to Nico to get 1 point this season? Yeah, we'll get to Nico in a second, starting down in 14th place, but would be nice for Nico Hulkenberg to pick up a point. In front of them, though, lots of midfield cars who will also be hoping to get those final point scoring places. Lawson and Lindblad starting in 9th and 10th place, so they'll be at the front of the midfield to begin with, but the main man who you'd expect to be alongside them fairly quickly, Pierre Gasly, is right there in 11th place as well. Gabriel Bortoletto's down in 12th. Ollie Behrman 13th. Nico Hulkenberg 14th. I think that battle between Behrman, Bortoletto and Hulkenberg could be very entertaining as well. Especially if, you know, we do have a little bit of chaos towards the front end. We have like an Antonelli, Charles Leclerc DNF, and then one of the McLaren cars also explodes. We suddenly have a lot more point scoring positions available, and actually the points available to Lawson, Lindblad, Gasly, possibly Bortoletto, Behrman, Hulkenberg do start to change where they are in terms of the championships and change their fates in terms of the Constructors' Championships as well, as we head into sort of nearing halfway point of the season. We've got 3 more rounds until we hit the exact halfway point. Please stop spamming in the chat. Yes, do stop spamming in the chat. You will just get timed out eventually. Mostly mediums is a shock. Yes. Yeah. I feel like medium is always just like a good bet, right? Because you want the grip off the start line. You want to go fairly far. Like, medium onto hard is pretty much the standard Formula One strategy at this point. Like, medium onto hard compound tire is definitely the one that most teams go for more often than not. Oh, man. We've got loads of gifted subs. Apologies, I missed it over on Twitch. Thank you so much for those gifted subs. Why is Pete? Legend. Excited for the race? Very excited for the race indeed. As we just mentioned, Nico Hulkenberg starting from 14. I think there's still points on the cards for Nico Hulkenberg. I still think there's an opportunity for him to pick up some points from P14. And then you kind of get to Ocon and Colapinto. Colapinto, maybe. I just don't trust Ocon from there to be able to do anything that exciting, if I'm honest with you. And then behind that, we've got 2x2x2. Are we expecting Williams, Cadillac, Aston Martin to really achieve much? Probably not. Probably not. Maybe Carlos Sainz, an absolute push, could be like 12th or something. Even with chaos, I'm not sure I'm expecting the Williams cars or anyone below that to do anything that exciting. Let's head to the race board, though, as we are getting towards the start of the formation lap. We're a couple of minutes away from the start of this Grand Prix. Just realized you were like 5 minutes behind. Don't worry. I'll let you know where the cars are and what lap I'm on as we go through. Why did I not stream Barcelona? I did. It was just over on Twitch. I couldn't stream on YouTube because I didn't have a channel to put it on. was the problem that we had there. Think Ferrari can keep up with Mercedes? I do, you know. I feel like it's sort of silly to say. And the obvious thing to say would be, oh, Mercedes, looking at the free practices, looking at qualifying, do seem to be a sort of level above Ferrari this weekend. But I don't know. I'm positive. I'm positive about Ferrari, which is never a good thing. It's always a gamble, but that's where I'm at right now. I could just see them having a good race down at Ferrari. Is this a two-stop race? Yes, most likely. Most likely a two-stop race. There is the run up to turn 3 being shown. The drivers all out there on the grid. Tire blankets being taken off. Just on. Oh, thank you for the new subscriptions and the follow as well over on Twitch as well. Just get the likes in, get the likes, get the follows in. Completely free, and we are live every single Grand Prix weekend for every competitive session. So next week we'll be live for sprint qualifying, the sprint race, the qualifying for the Grand Prix, and the Grand Prix itself next weekend at Silverstone. So make sure you're subscribed. Don't miss any of those live streams that are coming up. Here we are then. It has ticked over to 3 o'clock. George Russell is going to get us underway for the formation lap. A little bit of a hesitation from Charles Leclerc. I think just with it being so warm as well, the drivers will want to give themselves a little bit of space, try and almost cool down inside the car, but need to get the tyres up for temperature, need to cool the engine down. It's going to be a very back and forth race between these cars. Looking like the two-stop strategy will be the majority, though, although Bortoleto and Carlos Sainz both starting on the soft compound tyre, so wanting to get their overtakes done early, possibly, and then pit into a little bit of clean air. I think the other problem that we've got here, with this being the smallest lap on the calendar, and, you know, you look at how many people were lapped during the last Grand Prix in Barcelona, there's going to be a lot of traffic for a lot of these cars and a lot of things to deal with in terms of like back markers and blue flags. So I think it's going to be a weird race. Strategy wise, it's going to be so crucial that you get yourself in the right place at the right time. We'll have to wait and see. Like George Russell, like, kind of wants to pit, right? But to find a gap to pit into... he wants to pit first, wants to kind of set the precedent. But to find a gap to pit into is going to be really hard. We'll see. We will see. It's going to be very warm as well, and the tyre degradation is going to be pretty high too. George Russell now making his way to his grid box. Starting on the left-hand side of the track. We'll have to come across to cover off Charles Leclerc, who will have the inside run to turn 1. Of course, then the opportunity to battle in turn 3 and turn 4 is a very hectic first and second sector for the cars. And actually, considering that we have seen overtakes in some very exciting places throughout 2026. Maybe we'll even see some battling through the middle sector, some overtakes down in towards turn 9 or something. Would be very cool to see as well. Lance Stroll and Fernando Alonso at the back of the grid in the Aston Martins, just coming around the final corner now. Only 10 corners throughout the Austrian Grand Prix circuit. Turn 2 not really counting in my opinion. Turn 5 I'll just about let slide. Is just about a corner, I would say. But not a lot of corners to make up this track. And here we are, Lance Stroll just needs to come to a stop as soon as everybody is stationary. The green flag is waved. We get the blue lights at the side of the grid now to tell the drivers to pre-start their cars, get their turbos going. 5 red lights, and we're underway for the Austrian Grand Prix. George Russell's got away quite well. Charles Leclerc, though, got away as well. George Russell comes across the cover off Charles Leclerc, does get the run into turn 1 first, and it's looking like Russell will still lead out turn 1. Kimi Antonelli's gone a little bit wide, but has held on to 4th place for now. Verstappen still 5th, Norris still behind in 6th, having a little look at Max Verstappen though. Up the inside of Max Verstappen he goes, and Verstappen covers off Lando Norris for now. And oh, someone's gone very, very deep. Is it Kimi Antonelli? Antonelli has gone very wide. It's twice in 3 corners that he's absolutely sent it and gone wide. Lewis Hamilton also tries to go up the inside of his teammate in turn 4. It's getting very close between the 2 Ferraris. Charles Leclerc going a little bit wide. Lewis Hamilton's going to get the better of it. And Hamilton is up into 2nd place, but still needs to defend from his teammate Charles Leclerc, not letting that place lie. Russell, Hamilton, Antonelli. Sorry, Leclerc, Antonelli are top 4. Russell, Hamilton in the top 2. Charles Leclerc looking at Kimi Antonelli behind rather than Hamilton ahead at this moment. And it's not been the most chaotic start. We've got Verstappen, Piastri and Norris have swapped positions. Lawson's managed to get ahead of Hadjar. Charles Leclerc lost out to Lewis Hamilton inside of the top 10. Lindblad's still inside of the point scoring places. And Antonelli's gone wide again. Antonelli goes past Charles Leclerc, but I think might end up having to give that position back to the Ferrari because he went so deep into turn 1. Does indeed, but has he left an opportunity for Max Verstappen to get in front of Kimi Antonelli as well? Verstappen now side by side with Kimi Antonelli. Charles Leclerc's there as well. They're almost 3 abreast going down towards turn 4. Antonelli backs out of it, and Hamilton has gained that position on Antonelli for now. Antonelli trying to squeeze up the inside, not able to do so. Max Verstappen, though, still alongside Charles Leclerc, gets the better of Charles Leclerc on the exit of turn 4 through turn 5, and Max Verstappen now up into the podium places at the Red Bull Ring in a Red Bull car. There we are then. Max Verstappen gains massively there as Antonelli was trying to let Charles Leclerc back by. Ended up Max Verstappen getting the run at both of them, and Verstappen up the inside of Charles Leclerc through turn 4, got the run out of turn 5, and absolutely consolidated that 3rd place position for now. Russell and Hamilton is up there as well. Russell and Hamilton disappearing away from Max Verstappen at this point. Russell still leading. Hamilton within a second though. So we'll get that overtake boost. The overtake detection point just before turn 10 in this one. So have to be within a second of the car ahead just before you go around turn 10 to get that overtake boost for the next lap. Verstappen is falling back, and Valtteri Bottas's car is covered in smoke. I'm assuming that is extinguishing fluid, and maybe some fires happening inside of Valtteri Bottas's car. I think that's going to be the end of the Cadillac's race. The first DNF, lap 3 of this Grand Prix. Ooh, we do have some investigations coming through. Kimi Antonelli, turn 1, leaving the track, gaining an advantage, and he's got that twice, has Kimi Antonelli, leaving the track and gaining. Oh, and Liam Lawson's car also looks to be on fire by the sounds of things on the radio. Saying that something is on fire in his car. Can't see any smoke coming off the back of Liam Lawson's car. Maybe he just smelt something inside of the Racing Bulls. Has continued on. Isaac Hadjar's going to dart the inside, and Hadjar's going to rejoin the top 8. No, Liam Lawson gets the little switcheroo on him. Very neat and tidy driving from Liam Lawson there. Gets the better of Isaac Hadjar and remains in 8th place for now. But Hadjar's going to launch himself up the inside down towards turn 4. Liam Lawson's going to try and do the same thing again on the exit. Is he going to be able to get alongside the Red Bull once again? Not this time around. Isaac Hadjar does make that stick. And some really lovely racing between Hadjar and Lawson there from turn 3 all the way through to turn 5, side by side, battling with one another and absolutely nailing it. George Russell has escaped to over a second away from Lewis Hamilton. The Mercedes car starting to click into gear for George Russell. just at the right time, and Hamilton will need to get back inside of that second margin if he wants the boost for him. Lawson on the radio says he's still on fire. Can't see it. Obviously, he can see it on board. It must be maybe the inside of one of the brakes on the front of the car. I don't know. Can't see. I'm trying to see it from all different angles, and they changed the camera angle. He is now under pressure from Lindblad as well. Perez on the radio. A lot of smoke in the cockpit. It's a very warm afternoon for the drivers in Austria, and it's getting even hotter for a few of them out there. Sergio Perez also pulls into the pits for Cadillac. Bottas's car was aflame. Sergio Perez now thinking he's also catching on fire. Liam Lawson still running around with an active fire in his car, apparently. It's getting very warm indeed for a few of the drivers out there. Have to give Esteban Ocon some props, by the way. Was not expecting much from him considering his pace, but absolutely nailed the first lap. Launched that Haas car perfectly off the start line. And whilst a lot of the midfield cars were squabbling over position, Esteban Ocon has jumped all the way up into 11th place. Bortoleto got in front of Gasly. Gasly's dropped a couple of positions down to 13th. Behrman also losing out, dropping a couple of places to 15th for now. But it's a nice little battle that we've got in the midfield that will continue to run. Charles Leclerc now under pressure from Kimi Antonelli once again, as Antonelli has closed the gap as they make their way through turn 3. Is he close enough to have a go down towards turn 4? Let's have a little look. Has a little sneaky look at the inside of Charles Leclerc's Ferrari car, but nothing doing for Kimi Antonelli this time around. Russell, Hamilton, Verstappen still our top 3, with Charles Leclerc and Kimi Antonelli just outside of that top 3 in 4th and 5th place. Piastri and Norris actually doing a better job than I was expecting at holding on to the back of Leclerc and Antonelli. Thought there might be a little bit of a gap that opened up between those two, but it's actually Charles Leclerc who is struggling to hold on to the back of Max Verstappen. So Verstappen is trying to close in on Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton nearly 2 seconds adrift of Russell, so it feels like Verstappen more likely to be looking at the back of Lewis Hamilton and trying to make some moves than Hamilton fighting for the lead as it stands. Charles Leclerc under quite a bit of pressure from Kimi Antonelli. Gabriel Bortoleto having a little look up the inside of Esteban Ocon's Haas car. The Audi trying to get up into the point scoring places. The Racing Bulls of Lawson and Lindblad holding on to it for now. Here comes Kimi Antonelli for the second time, though, down towards turn 4. He's a little bit closer than he was last time. Is he going to go to the outside, possibly? Charles Leclerc closes the door on the apex, and then Kimi Antonelli tries to sweep in on the exit of turn 4 through turn 5. Is he going to be able to make that move? And Charles Leclerc comes across and covers him off as they make their way through turn 6. Charles Leclerc stays ahead. Gabriel Bortoleto, though, has made that move on Esteban Ocon that I was hinting at beforehand. The Audi was getting very close to the back of the Haas car. Bortoleto now up into 11th place, and Charles Leclerc has opened the door to Kimi Antonelli through the final sector. And Kimi Antonelli is going to use turn 9 to get ahead, and does get ahead. Through turn 9, Kimi Antonelli maybe just catching Charles Leclerc sleeping a touch there. Charles Leclerc now drops to P5. Antonelli back up to where he started in P4. Oscar Piastri, the next driver in the queue, and Charles Leclerc not looking very comfortable inside of that Ferrari at all, it has to be said. It's falling away from Max Verstappen. Antonelli now feels like he'll disappear up the road a touch from Charles Leclerc. He's already nearly a second ahead of Charles Leclerc just through the first sector and a half, really. Antonelli 3.5 seconds down on Max Verstappen. Lewis Hamilton actually has lost a chunk of time on that last lap. Little bit of a mistake possibly from Lewis Hamilton, cost him half a second or so, and now Max Verstappen is within striking range of the Ferrari. Hamilton now 2.5 seconds adrift of the lead with George Russell. Antonelli has got the better of Leclerc and continues on. Just trying to see if Antonelli is closing the gap to Hamilton and Verstappen at any sort of pace. It was a little bit, couple of tenths quicker, Antonelli, that last lap. Just a couple of tenths quicker than Verstappen in third place. The Mercedes car will probably close into the back of Hamilton or Verstappen at some point in this Grand Prix. Might take a little while to do so, though, if the pace is only a couple of tenths quicker. Verstappen right underneath the rear wing of Lewis Hamilton as they make their way through turn 3, down towards turn 4. Using that little bit of battery, Lewis Hamilton positioning the car well. Verstappen not close enough to make a move this time around. Lewis Hamilton possibly preserving his tyres. Definitely so. But also possibly a little bit of a mistake from Lewis Hamilton. Did lose half a second couple of laps ago now to the race leader, George Russell. Wouldn't have been a massive error, but just enough to cost him half a second. Which actually, yeah, is fairly big around here. Oh, and Lewis Hamilton has a little bit of a wobble out of turn 10. It's going to affect his run to turn 1 and possibly even how much momentum he can carry into turn 3. Max Verstappen looks very close indeed as they make their way through the first corner. Verstappen following the Ferrari up the hill, making their way around turn 2, up towards the breaking point of turn 3. Verstappen not quite close enough to get alongside. Maybe down towards turn 4 is going to be the opportune moment to try and make a move. Antonelli now within 3 seconds of these two here. Verstappen is closer still, but just doesn't quite have the straight line speed, I don't think, Max Verstappen, to close that gap fully to Lewis Hamilton. Looks closer and closer, but never quite close enough to really go for a move. George Russell on the radio. Verstappen could trigger this early. Very close to Lewis. Every extra second that we can get. So George Russell being told to put the hammer down a little bit and push that a little bit faster. It's got a 3.2 second gap to Lewis Hamilton behind. Has been slowly stretching that lead. Hamilton 0.3 of a second down on Russell's most recent lap time. And Verstappen, really bad brake pulling inside Max Verstappen's Red Bull car. So nobody feels very happy inside of their red. And then Max Verstappen goes for it. He sees the opportunity to make a move, and Verstappen goes up the inside and he gets the move done on Lewis Hamilton into turn 3. Just as he was on the radio complaining about his brakes, he used them perfectly. But here comes Lewis to come back at Max Verstappen. Verstappen, a big lock up into turn 4. Hamilton has to be a little bit careful. And Hamilton able to get back around Verstappen, but Verstappen using that little bit of extra boost through turn 5. Verstappen's going to go around the outside of Lewis Hamilton into turn 6 and turn 7. They're still side by side, making their way through the middle part of the track. Verstappen not giving this up, and Hamilton eventually closes the door through turn 8. Wow, that is some incredible racing between Verstappen and Hamilton. The side by side through the middle part of the lap followed each other from turn 4 all the way through to turn 8. They were neck and neck with one another. Verstappen using every inch of racetrack to keep himself alongside Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton eventually able to get that position back. If you're George Russell, you're smiling pretty wide about that, to be honest. Verstappen on the radio. It's a penalty, a clear penalty, says Max Verstappen. He thinks Hamilton has done something untoward. We didn't get the onboards, didn't see. We'll have to wait and see on that one. But for me, it just looked like absolutely brilliant racing between the two world champions. Hamilton in the Ferrari, Verstappen in the Red Bull, side by side. And now continuing on, Hamilton is still ahead. Verstappen half a second down, though. Yeah, as I was saying, you're smiling pretty wide if you're George Russell with all of that. Russell with a 112.6 last time. Hamilton and Verstappen both in the 114s. So losing quite a bit of time battling with one another for that second place. And giving... Oh! And that is Lewis Hamilton coming into the pits. Hamilton has decided to pull the trigger early. I think... Looking at how much time they were losing in that battle with Verstappen, maybe just pulling the trigger early, wanting to get onto the tyres, try and get a little bit of an undercut possibly on George Russell. Going to be a big undercut, 5 seconds if he's able to do so, but maybe just lining himself up with a little bit of clean air as well, as Gabriel Bortoleto now comes past the pits. And I can understand why Ferrari have kind of gone for that gap. There is a bit of a gap between Bortoleto and Ocon that Hamilton is going to come out into. Hamilton now in 11th place, but there will be a touch of clean air, not loads of clean air. There's Bortoleto, Lindblad, Lawson there. Outlap Critical says, Lewis Hamilton on the radio. Let's see what he can do. Hard compound tyres are on for Lewis Hamilton. Let's push. What's he got inside of that car? Can he... First of all, he's got to deal with Gabriel Bortoleto ahead of him in the Audi. Can he get ahead of the Audi car first and then make sure he can push and try and get closer to the lead of this Grand Prix? Antonelli was also looking very happy indeed watching Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton battle, because Antonelli is now just a second adrift. Charles Leclerc also into the pit, so Ferrari both going early. Is this the three-stop strategy from Ferrari then? Are they expecting to go for a three-stop strategy again? Worked incredibly well for them in Barcelona, of course, but might not be absolutely perfect for them this weekend, as we see Lewis Hamilton going past Gabriel Bortoleto into turn 1, and Charles Leclerc is going to come out in that same gap. So Charles Leclerc also trying to get out in front of Ocon, and is in front of Ocon. Charles Leclerc's got a nice little gap actually to run into. There's quite a big gap between Bortoleto and Ocon that both of the Ferrari cars have been able to pit themselves into. Pierre Gasly has also come into the pits for the Alpine team. But it just depends on how much pace they've got inside of that Ferrari car. We'll keep an eye on Lewis Hamilton's lap time as he comes around turn 10. He's currently just going through the middle sector though, so a little while until we see where Ferrari are at and why Lewis Hamilton has decided to come in this early. Verstappen still remains ahead of Antonelli. Antonelli actually hasn't closed that gap massively, you would say. Still 1.3 seconds adrift of Verstappen, which he was once Verstappen and Hamilton, had given up on fighting for P2. And then we've got Antonelli now running in the podium places, of course. Piastri then 12 seconds off the lead of this Grand Prix. Bit of a gap opening up, it has to be said, between Antonelli, Piastri, Norris and Hadjar. Liam Lawson is actually doing a fairly decent job at holding on to the back of the top 8 teams. Lindblad there too. Hamilton, Bortoleto. Then Charles Leclerc actually running just outside of the point scoring places at the moment. Medium tyres haven't gone off yet. It's very true. The mediums do seem to be going. Everyone seems fairly comfortable on them. Russell, Verstappen, Antonelli continuing on. See what Hamilton's lap time was like. Hamilton was 0.6 of a second quicker than George Russell last time around. So there is some pace in that Ferrari car. Hamilton's now got a little bit of a problem with Arvid Lindblad ahead of him and Liam Lawson to deal with. This is the problem with the three-stop strategy, is there's not many places where you can pit and actually come out with proper clean air, because the whole track is so congested. There's so many cars out there. The 2 Cadillacs, of course, have DNF, but there's still 20 cars running around the circuit. It's only 10 corners. It's very compact, a lot of traffic wherever you pit and however you come out. And Lindblad now actually causing Hamilton a little bit of a headache. Hamilton going up the inside to turn 3, though. Tries to get the move done on the Racing Bulls car and does get past Arvid Lindblad for now. Up into turn 4 they go. Will Lindblad come back at Lewis Hamilton? Not this time around. Hamilton does gain 8th place then and continues on those hard compound tyres after having stopped. Hülkenberg is also closing the gap to Esteban Ocon. We saw Gabriel Bortoleto get the better of Esteban Ocon earlier in the race. Is his Audi teammate Nico Hülkenberg going to do the same? He is indeed. Down towards turn 4, picks up the inside line, and Hülkenberg up into 12th place, where Ocon falls to 13th. Oh, no, sorry. Ocon comes back at him, but Hülkenberg gets it done. He does get it done, Nico Hülkenberg. Ocon has had a bit of a resurgence there on the outside of turn 4. Tried to come back at Nico Hülkenberg, but Hülkenberg has held on to that 12th place for now. Got Ocon now down in 13th. His teammate Ollie Behrman, the closest car behind. George World Drivers' Championship is better than Kimi. That is quite the statement. I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments, to be fair. Pit loss time isn't ridiculous here, it has to be said. You do sort of get a little bit of a run up the inside of turn 1. So it is your sort of average pit loss time, 19-20 seconds. Ferrari looking at a 3-stop, though, will have to make that up throughout the race. And Hamilton's last lap, 0.4 of a second quicker than George Russell, but was having to deal with Arvid Lindblad, now also having to deal with Liam Lawson. And this is, again, the problem that Ferrari are going to have. They're going to keep catching the back of midfield cars. Going to continue to pit into the weird traffic that is going on behind them. Don't think Lawson's going to put up too much of a fight. And Hamilton being told over the radio, you are faster than Charles. Charles now in 10th place. Leclerc gains that position as Gabriel Bortoleto comes into the pits for the Audi team. So a few cars getting their pits done maybe a little bit early in the window for the medium tyres. Ferrari clearly going for the 3-stop strategy by the looks of things. But we then also have the midfield cars starting to do the 2-stop as well. Bortoleto is in. Let's see if he remains ahead of Pierre Gasly. Gasly coming down the start-finish straight, and Bortoleto is going to come out still ahead of Pierre Gasly. So that's a big plus for the Audi team there. And Gabriel Bortoleto actually catching the back of Colapinto and Albon ahead of him. Hulkenberg, Ocon, Behrman also in that fight for the point-scoring places. If something happens to someone running inside the top 10, because the Racing Bulls cars look in a league of their own compared to the rest of the midfield at the moment. Lawson and Lindblad a year ahead of Nico Hulkenberg as Max Verstappen pits for Red Bull. Isaac Hadjar comes in as well, double stacking at Red Bull. There was enough of a gap between Verstappen and Hadjar to do so. Lewis Hamilton is going to come around turn 1 and is going to be ahead of Max Verstappen. So Verstappen comes out just behind Lewis Hamilton, maybe a second or so adrift of the Ferrari car. Lawson just behind, but Lawson having not yet pitted for Racing Bulls. Actually, Lindblad has just come in, and Esteban Ocon has come into the pits as well. Alex Albon also following suit, so the midfield cars are starting to make their maneuvers and covering each other off. So we're going to see them come back with some fresh tyres. See what kind of battles develop there, as box is the call for George Russell, our race leader. We haven't had to talk about him much, to be honest. It's been a fairly easy first stint for George Russell. Verstappen and Hamilton holding one another up has given George the opportunity to race ahead of the rest. Antonelli continues on then as our now race leader. George Russell gets the better of the pit stops, comes in first. Oscar Piastri the same at McLaren. Gets the opportunity to come into the pits before his teammate, being the leading McLaren car. Lando Norris continues on, and George Russell is actually going to come out just behind Lando Norris in 3rd place. Let's have a little look at the gap between Russell and Hamilton. It's 1.8 seconds. Russell now on the fresher tyres. Hamilton's tyres having done 7 laps. But Hamilton on a completely different strategy. We'll have to wait and see. Feel like it's all going to come to a crescendo towards the end with the Ferrari cars. Lando Norris saying on the radio, there's no more pace inside of that McLaren car, so being asked to extend this stint, but not very happy about that. Lando Norris's last lap was a 1:14.3. That is not the kind of pace that you need to be anywhere close to competing for the podium positions in this one. See what Lewis Hamilton can do. Still 1.7 seconds adrift, 1.6 seconds adrift. Isn't within that boost range, Lewis Hamilton, and Max Verstappen is actually within overtake range of Hamilton. So Verstappen is going to start getting that extra boost every lap as well now. Hamilton on a different strategy. Will need to be a little bit careful here that he doesn't compromise his race too much by battling with Max Verstappen if he's still thinking about the possibility of catching George Russell in all of this. Lando Norris does get that box call, so did go an extra lap, Lando Norris there, for the McLaren team wanting to extend that stint. I imagine they would have wanted to extend it a little bit more than that, but the tyres are just not there on that McLaren, and Lando Norris now actually holding up George Russell a little bit here. Lando Norris ahead of Russell, Hamilton and Verstappen following behind, and actually this could play into Lewis Hamilton's favour a little bit here if Lando Norris is able to just hold up George Russell a touch. It's not quite played out perfectly though, as Hamilton's pace compared to Russell not exceptional. And there goes Lando Norris into the pits and releases George Russell into second place. Antonelli leading, running up the hill. And Verstappen is very quick indeed. Verstappen, half a second quicker than Lewis Hamilton on that last lap. Verstappen with a lunge up the inside at turn 3 as well. Looking very racy indeed is Max Verstappen. And Lewis Hamilton just needs to be a little bit careful here because Hamilton's on a different strategy. So he doesn't necessarily need to come back at Max Verstappen here, but can't help himself. Goes to the left-hand side of the track. Goes for that maneuver once again, and Hamilton back up into second place for now. Will Max Verstappen have a look at him through the middle part of the lap as he did a few laps ago? He will indeed. Verstappen pulls to the inside of turn 6, and Verstappen's going to get the runner Hamilton through there, and Verstappen up into third place. Effectively second, Lewis Hamilton has to concede. And the Red Bull on the hard compound tyre is looking very good indeed. Isaac Hadjar has just put in the fastest lap of the Grand Prix. Max Verstappen is putting in manoeuvres on Lewis Hamilton. It's looking very good for the Red Bull cars now that they're on a fresh set of tyres. Isaac Hadjar 111.2 is even quicker than George Russell, who's on a 111.4. Couple of tenths in Isaac Hadjar's favour. Hadjar actually catching the back of Oscar Piastri at this moment in time, and now has boost on Oscar Piastri as well. Piastri and Hadjar fighting for position. They have both stopped once. Gonna get very tasty indeed for the French fans out there. And Lando Norris actually going very deep at turn 3, costing himself massively after that pit stop. And Lando Norris not looking comfy on those hard compound tyres. Maybe just weren't quite up to temperature by the time he reached turn 3. He's behind his teammate Oscar Piastri and now Isaac Hadjar as well. And Hadjar is looking very swift. They tried to extend Lando Norris's stint. I just think that was the wrong choice. Norris now so far adrift of Piastri and Hadjar. Lost so much time on those tyres that were just absolutely done. Looking behind that, Lindblad has actually got the better of Lawson in the pit stops. Lawson came in after Lindblad. Lindblad getting that jump on Lawson and now up into 9th place. Still both of the RB cars inside the point scoring positions. Gabriel Bortoleto, the closest competitor, is still 2 seconds adrift. Let's see what Bortoleto can do for the Audi team there as Pierre Gasly now makes a maneuver on Ollie Behrman, the Alpine. I was expecting the Alpines to be a little bit more competitive, closer to the Racing Bulls pace, but Pierre Gasly and Colapinto not quite up there. Gasly now takes 12th place away from Ollie Behrman. Colapinto actually falling all the way down to 19th since the start of the Grand Prix. He's between Alonso and Stroll until he catches the back of Fernando Alonso's Aston Martin. Alonso doesn't put up too much of a fight. Colapinto up into 18th place. Oh, and there is Carlos Sainz, who has come to a stop. There's a car stopped on track, and Kimi Antonelli uses that opportunity of the yellow flag to decide to get into the pits and back out again. So Antonelli pitting under the yellow flag conditions. Carlos Sainz's car has come to a stop on the pit straight. Surely it's going to have to be a virtual safety car of some kind. I think that's what they're gambling on, and it is a virtual safety car. So it took a second or so. Ooh. Don't know why that's... I'll quickly reload the the track map, but we are under virtual safety car conditions now. Kimi Antonelli, I think, just obviously gambled on getting into the pits at that point, but let's have a little look at what happens to Carlos Sainz here. Yeah, that just completely gives up on itself. Carlos Sainz's car, sorry, just completely and utterly gives up. And Kimi Antonelli jumped into the pits. Did he jump across the pit line? It's going to be close. Ooh. So Antonelli deciding to pit as soon as they saw Carlos Sainz's car come to a stop by the looks of things. So they weren't committed to pitting. And the virtual safety car. Ooh. Kimi Antonelli's just lost that opportunity of a cheap pit stop. I think Lewis Hamilton possibly taking that opportunity. I think he is, yeah. Hamilton box. And Hamilton had already gone past turn 10. Ferrari tried to give him that box order. Still virtual safety car now, though. So Hamilton deciding to pit under virtual safety car conditions now, getting that cheap pit stop done for Ferrari very early. Lap 26 of the Grand Prix for a second pit stop. Some of the guys on the mediums, or if you'd have even started on the hard, you wouldn't have been stopping for your first pit stop at this point. Hamilton rolling the dice, being aggressive, doing what they did in Barcelona, setting the precedent at Ferrari. And Lewis Hamilton comes out behind Isaac Hadjar. And the pit lane entry is now closed because Carlos Sainz's car is being pushed through the pit lane as we speak. They've had to open up the gap to the pit lane, and the way that it works is they're trying to get Carlos Sainz's car back down to the Williams garage, effectively. Will not be able to rejoin. That is Carlos Sainz out of the race completely. But they are not now allowed to pit, and the virtual safety car is ending. And Antonelli on the radio, not very happy. Got a brake split. One is hotter than the other. So Antonelli having some braking issues, and one of the brakes not quite clicking into gear in the same way the other is. Kimi Antonelli now actually trying to overtake an Aston Martin. I think that's Lance Stroll he's making his way past, and he does indeed. So Antonelli now running P4 is 1.2 seconds adrift of Charles Leclerc in third place. Antonelli quickest first sector of anybody. Isaac Hadjar also fighting with Oscar Piastri. Was closing that gap before the virtual safety car, Isaac Hadjar. And is closing that gap still. Is within boost range and has a little lunge up the inside maybe of Piastri. Not this time around. Hadjar has to hold fire for now and remain in 6th place behind the McLaren at the moment. Lewis Hamilton after that pit stop has come out P7, by the way. And will soon catch the back of this battle between Piastri and Hadjar. And it's the problem with Ferrari doing those multiple stops. They are going to come up against weird bits of traffic and cars that are fighting for position. Hadjar and Piastri are by no means just going to get out of the way of Lewis Hamilton to let him the opportunity of running up. Piastri actually, though, trying to escape away from Hadjar, again having to deal with the Aston Martin of Lance Stroll. Moves out of the way of Piastri and Hadjar there. Antonelli is also closing into the back of Charles Leclerc as they get towards turn 3. Is the Italian driver going to have a little look at the Monegasque as they go down towards turn 4? Antonelli's been able to make some maneuvers in this Grand Prix. Needs to close the gap to his teammate, who is a considerable distance ahead. Antonelli 12.7 seconds off George Russell, who has re-entered the lead of this race. Verstappen 4.8 seconds off in second place. Charles Leclerc then another 7 seconds between Verstappen and Leclerc. Just George Russell and the pace of that Mercedes car does look pretty dominant this weekend. It's going to be something very special from Hamilton or Verstappen if they are able to close that gap to George Russell out front. Verstappen has just set the fastest lap of the race, though. It's a couple of tenths quicker than George Russell. He's finding a little bit of a rhythm now, Verstappen. And Charles Leclerc and Kimi Antonelli having a little look at one another through turn 1. Alonso's Aston Martin gets out of the way of the fighting duo. Can Kimi Antonelli use this opportunity to have a little look into turn 3? Does go up the inside, but doesn't commit to a move this time around. Just had a little look, did Kimi Antonelli. Made sure that Charles Leclerc knew he was coming. Let's have a little look. Will Antonelli have a go down towards turn 4? He's much closer than he was last time around. It does look like he's gone for a move, but he just got it a little bit out of shape there, Kimi Antonelli, and Charles Leclerc able to drive his Ferrari away. Possibly a little mistake in there from Kimi Antonelli. Looked like he was going to be right alongside Leclerc, but just didn't commit in the braking, and maybe that's the issue that Kimi Antonelli's having with the brakes, not quite giving him the confidence to go for a maneuver there. And Antonelli and Charles Leclerc still continuing their battle for the final podium place. Oscar Piastri is able to escape a little bit away from Hadjar. Hadjar outside of that second margin as they come around turn 10. So Hadjar is not going to get that boost, I don't think, this time around, where Lewis Hamilton has now caught the back of the Red Bull car and will get that boost button available to him. He's on that soft compound tyre compared to Hadjar on the medium. But if Hamilton wants to win this race, he really needs to dispatch Isaac Hadjar pretty swiftly. And it's played into Hamilton's favour a little bit here that maybe Hadjar won't have that boost available to him. Hamilton and Hadjar both having to deal with Fernando Alonso, Aston Martin, though. And Kimi Antonelli does have a little look and breezes past Charles Leclerc this time around. Charles Leclerc opening the door possibly, and Kimi Antonelli walking straight through it as Lewis Hamilton is side by side with Isaac Hadjar as they're going through turn 4 now. Down towards turn 6. Can Hamilton have the breath of braking to get past Isaac Hadjar? He does indeed, and Hamilton fighting with the Red Bulls this afternoon. It's got the better of Isaac Hadjar this time around. Hamilton up ahead of Hadjar and into 6th place. 1.7 seconds adrift of Oscar Piastri in 5th. Hamilton needs to continue to go at that pace, though. Needs to get the hammer down because every single time he's got to fight for position, he's just losing a few tenths. You can see it there. Hamilton was 0.6 of a second slower than Russell that lap. Lost a little bit of time fighting with Isaac Hadjar. Hadjar trying to sweep around the outside and have that inside line for turn 6, but Hamilton just had that little bit of extra pace inside the Ferrari car. Goes that little bit deeper into turn 6 and gets that move done. Hamilton up ahead of Hadjar, as we mentioned before. Lap 31 of this Grand Prix. Still 40 laps left to go here in Austria. It is looking like George Russell is in a pretty commanding position, though. Verstappen is lapping quicker. It's only a couple of tenths of a second. He's still 4.3 seconds adrift of the lead. And Kimi Antonelli another 9 seconds back. So it does feel like it's sort of Russell versus Verstappen at the moment, with the possibility of Hamilton maybe coming into contention towards the end of the Grand Prix, depending on how good a laps he can put on once he gets a little bit of clean air. It's the other issue for Lewis Hamilton. Hasn't had any clean air to really talk about. When he pitted first time around, he came out in the midfield battle. Now he's pitted the second time, Lewis Hamilton. He's come out with Hadjar and Piastri to deal with. It's not the most comfortable race if you are Lewis Hamilton. Verstappen 4.3 is indeed 4.3 seconds. The gap was 0.3 of a second quicker. Verstappen on the last lap, so he's closing in. It's going to drop below that 4-second margin, you would imagine, but Verstappen still with a long way to go to really be underneath the rear wing of George Russell in all of this. And Lewis Hamilton getting a little bit hot, is just in that dirty air, Lewis Hamilton. As I said, just find himself in a lot of traffic so far in this Grand Prix. Still has Antonelli, Leclerc, Piastri in front of him that are going to just give all that dirty exhaust air out the back of those cars, and every single time you're Lewis Hamilton running into the back of all those fumes, it's not the coolest place to be. Progress on progress is progress for Verstappen. Don't get me wrong, he is closing in. Again, he was 0.3 of a second or so quicker, 2 and a bit tenths of a second quicker. It's closing that gap progressively to George Russell, but at this pace, it's going to be towards the end of the Grand Prix where they really come together. Because you've got to remember, Russell and Verstappen will have to pit once again as well. So Max Verstappen's got one fresh set of one fresh set of everything for Verstappen still available. So he's got a few options tactically that he can take as well, but still 3.8 seconds off of George Russell in this one. Antonelli, then 9.1 seconds adrift, again is lapping well and is 0.5 of a second quicker than his teammate Antonelli last time around, but still 13 seconds off the lead overall. So still a little while to go before Antonelli really comes into contention of any kind. Charles Leclerc in 4th spot, lapping in the 112s. Lewis Hamilton is actually lapping comparably to George Russell in all of this, which doesn't bode well considering Hamilton will also need an extra stop, you will imagine. And Hamilton on the radio, has the car cooled down yet? Mode race is what Lewis Hamilton is told. So Hamilton just having to cool down his car a little bit there. Now back into the racing mode for Lewis Hamilton. Let's see if he can catch up to the back of Oscar Piastri and start claiming some of that time back to George Russell at the front of the Grand Prix. Look at that midfield battle sort of playing out as well. Lindblad and Lawson still running very well inside the point scoring places. Lindblad 16 seconds off the back of Lando Norris, yes, but is a good 5 seconds ahead of Gabriel Bortoleto, who's in 11th place. So the two Racing Bulls still with a really good opportunity for a double point scoring finish as well. Gabriel Bortoleto 11th, the closest competitor. Isn't quite matching their race pace though. Bortoleto a 113 dead. Lindblad in the 112.7s. Lawson in the 112.6s. So the Racing Bulls cars are actually escaping away a touch from Gabriel Bortoleto and the rest of the midfield pack. So looking unlikely that anyone other than the Racing Bulls cars will score points for the midfield teams. Unless, of course, something goes very wrong for the top 8 drivers. Gasly is then another fair distance away. Gasly nearly 10 seconds adrift of Bortoleto. So Bortoleto trying to hold on to the point scoring places as much as he can. But as soon as you get to Gasly, it is a big jump backwards. Another huge gap between Gasly and Hulkenberg. Behrman then's another 4 seconds back. Colapinto's 8 seconds behind that. Does just feel like the midfield cars can't handle being in the dirty air of the car ahead and also are struggling with the temperature in Austria. Track temperature 51.4 degrees, air temperature 34.6. It is very, very warm in Austria, and it's not helping out a lot of those midfield cars that are just trying to find a little bit of clean air and trying to cool their cars down a little bit. We had Lewis Hamilton on the radio effectively being told to try and keep their engines in a cooler place. Had so many DNFs so far this season with cars overheating and batteries overheating. Carlos Sainz has come into the pits because of that, and 3 cars out of this Grand Prix. 2 Cadillacs both on fire. Haven't got full idea of what happened to Carlos Sainz, but from the onboard just felt like the engine gave up on itself inside of that Williams car. So Carlos Sainz ends up in 20th place and out of the Grand Prix. I'll tell you what has been happening. Max Verstappen has got the best lap of the Grand Prix and also has just found a little bit more pace. I know he was only catching by a 10th or 2. That 10th or 2 has turned into 4 tenths, even 5 tenths for Max Verstappen over the last few laps, and actually is much more competitive pace from Verstappen. Russell is catching the back of Ollie Behrman though. Do worry if there's a little bit of a traffic incident possibly for George Russell, but that plays into Verstappen's favour. And Max Verstappen is looking very racy indeed. Russell's got Ollie Behrman for company next. And Verstappen will be able to now see George Russell a little bit clearer as he's making his way down those straights towards turn 3 and turn 4. Oscar Piastri, though, makes a lunging move on Charles Leclerc. Lewis Hamilton's behind in the other Ferrari. Charles Leclerc is going to be told to move out of the way of Lewis Hamilton, you would imagine here. Hamilton is now side by side with Leclerc after Piastri gains that position. Leclerc is not going to give the position up to his teammate, though. And Charles Leclerc stays ahead of Lewis Hamilton. And it'd be interesting to see if the Ferrari team intervene here. Surely they will let Lewis Hamilton go ahead of Charles Leclerc. Hamilton making the move by himself without any team orders anyway. Goes around the outside of turn 6. And Hamilton, in a similar way to that, how he got the move done on Isaac Hadjar, also gets the move done on Charles Leclerc. So Leclerc now drops from 4th to 6th in the space of 3 corners. And Charles Leclerc is actually boxing, has had enough of those hard compound tyres. Charles Leclerc into the pits for Ferrari. So Hamilton now with Oscar Piastri for company. 0.6 seconds the gap between Piastri and Hamilton. Feels like Charles Leclerc maybe cost his teammate a few tenths of a second there, but Leclerc into the pits nonetheless. Back out for the Scuderia again. It was a fairly decent stop. Let's see where Charles Leclerc is going to come out. Esteban Ocon has gone. So he's going to come out behind Esteban Ocon in terms of the order of things. But Ocon has been lapped. So Charles Leclerc is still inside of the top 8 as Lindblad and Lawson just coming around turn 1 as Leclerc leaves the pits. So Charles Leclerc now actually with a little bit of clean air. There's not a lot of clean air in the Austrian Grand Prix circuit, but Charles Leclerc has found a little pocket of it. Let's see what kind of pace he's got inside of that Ferrari car when he has got, well, everyone in front of him. Unfortunately, Charles Leclerc still running 8th of that top 8. 5.5 seconds the gap to Lindblad behind, though, and 15 seconds the gap to Lando Norris ahead. So let's see what this pace of the Ferrari is really like. Lance Stroll and Fernando Alonso fighting for position in front of Lindblad and Lawson, actually. And Lindblad and Lawson will be pointing at the blue flags and asking the 2 Aston Martins to get out of the way, I would say, inside of those racing bulls. Alex Albon comes into pits and comes back out behind Esteban Ocon, you would imagine. Now, this would be interesting for Charles Leclerc. Will Albon come out in front of Leclerc and just be another annoying midfield car to have to deal with? Yes, he will indeed. But let's hope that Alex Albon gets out of the way of Charles Leclerc fairly swiftly there, because Charles Leclerc does not want to be sitting behind the Williams of Alex Albon for too long. And Hamilton on the radio is being told we need to get past Piastri. So I feel like Hamilton will probably know that, but still going nonetheless. Let's check back in with Max Verstappen. Has closed that gap to 1.5 seconds now. It is closing pretty consistently at this point. Oh, and Lewis Hamilton with a little snap of oversteer through turn 9. Catches it very well, does Lewis Hamilton. That's not going to help in the chase of Oscar Piastri, but still actually remains within a second of Piastri. Decent little catch there from Lewis Hamilton. He continues on. But as I say, let's go back to Max Verstappen. Has continued to lap 4 tenths of a second quicker than George Russell. That gap, remember, was 5 seconds or so, just about 10, 12 laps ago. Verstappen's just been chunking away at that time, closing in on the back of George Russell. We don't know how much Russell is kind of holding back, is the only other thing. Will George Russell now release the beast? He's got 1.2 seconds margin. Will not want Verstappen to get within a second of him. So now we get to see whether George Russell was maybe holding back a touch, or if this is just the pace from George Russell's Mercedes car, and if Max Verstappen might be on for a fairly impressive taking of the lead. Let's have a little look. Oscar Piastri just making his way around turn 10. Incident involving Fernando Alonso speeding in the pit lane. That is pretty much a slam dunk penalty as long as they've measured the pit lane correctly, we do have to say. So I imagine Fernando Alonso will pick up a 5-second penalty for that. Isaac Hadjar is in. Talking to the pit lane. He has come in for the Red Bull team, swapping his tyres. Let's see where Isaac Hadjar is going to come out in all of this. It's been going fairly well, Isaac Hadjar. Has had moments where he's been lapping really well, but has pitted once again for the Red Bull team. Needs to put in some very, very swift laps. Is he going to come out behind Albon? He is going to come out behind Albon. I know Albon is a back marker and we'll get out of the way because of the blue flags, but it's just that little bit of an awkwardness to deal with if you're Isaac Hadjar that you'd rather not have to deal with. Hadjar now just behind Leclerc, though. What, 5 seconds adrift? 4.8 seconds adrift, Isaac Hadjar from Charles Leclerc. Red Bull of Verstappen has closed in. There is that 5-second confirmation for Fernando Alonso. Speeding in the pit lane, slam dunk penalty. Fernando Alonso, 5 seconds added to his race time. Unless he pits again. Where's he go? Yeah, he'll definitely pit again. He's on the soft combat tire. Didn't know if he pitted for a second time already. But Verstappen closing in, and over the last couple of laps has just eased up in the sort of 3/4 chunks that he was taking out of George Russell. Is still the quicker of the two drivers, but only by about 0.5 of a second last time around. So George Russell maybe just getting the go-ahead to push a little bit harder inside of that Mercedes car and really show Red Bull what he's got. Verstappen, though, managing to match him for now. This could get very close between Verstappen and Russell. Again, just George Russell really doesn't want Verstappen to be within a second. As soon as Verstappen gets that run at him, he's within a second, gets that extra boost. That's when things start to get a little bit more annoying for George Russell, and when Max Verstappen really comes into play for the possibility of getting an overtake done. Piastri on the radio gets a box, so Hamilton is finally going to be released from behind that McLaren car. Hamilton's lap times are equal to George Russell and Verstappen, but just still needs a little bit more, does Lewis. Oh, Hamilton pits. Hamilton pits too. So Piastri is in and Hamilton pits also. So Hamilton is now actually fighting for position with Oscar Piastri. And Piastri is coming out of the pits ahead of Lewis Hamilton. They're on the same stint. They're both probably going to go to the end. 29 laps left to go. Charles Leclerc goes by. And Charles Leclerc is pitted a little bit earlier too. So Hamilton, the 3-stop strategy and pitting under the virtual safety car and trying all of those different shenanigans just really hasn't worked. Ferrari just feel like tried to be a little bit more aggressive, but hasn't played into Hamilton's favour. He's been in so much traffic, and George Russell must have made a mistake here, because Max Verstappen is now within 0.3 of a second. No, Russell's coming to the pits. Whew. Goodness. I was like, that was jumped in terms of the gap between Verstappen and Russell. It's because Russell was slowing down to enter the pit lane. As I looked across, and Russell does indeed pit for the second time this Grand Prix. And he's going to come back out. Oh yeah, he's absolutely fine. I feel Lando Norris is going to go by, but George Russell is going to get out ahead of it, actually. Thought Russell might end up being just behind Colapinto and Norris, but no, Mercedes have nailed that, you have to say. Really good pit stop from Mercedes. Shuffled into the right position. They're ahead of the traffic there with Colapinto. Don't have to bother fighting with Lando Norris. And he comes out in 3rd place, George Russell, but is in pole position, really, to still go on to win this Grand Prix. Does Verstappen retaliate? Do Red Bull decide to pit Max Verstappen and put him on a similar strategy? Or have they got a little bit of extra pace? No, Verstappen continues on, so Verstappen is going to keep going and is not going to box just to cover off. Isaac Hadjar finding himself in a little bit of a weird world alongside Esteban Ocon at this moment in time, and Hadjar is actually closing into the back of Lewis Hamilton, so Hamilton is in a really awkward place now because he is fighting for Piastri for position. Piastri's actually 1.3 seconds ahead, and Isaac Hadjar is closing in behind. So Hamilton now really, really struggling. And Esteban Ocon has actually cost Isaac Hadjar pretty substantially there. But Hadjar now has been released by Esteban Ocon and is behind Lewis Hamilton now. See what Lando Norris is an interesting one. He's in 4th place, 9.8 seconds ahead. Lando Norris hasn't stopped for a second time yet. Lando Norris just going for a very long one-stop strategy possibly here, and could play into Lando Norris's favour. He's running in 4th place. Charles Leclerc is 9.7 seconds adrift, and he is lapping like a second a lap quicker, though. It's Charles Leclerc. So, going to be behind Lando Norris within the next 10, 12 laps, you would say. Ferrari, yeah, they just got the Lewis Hamilton strategy wrong, I think. Hamilton's come out in too much traffic. So much traffic. Oh, and George Russell a little bit worried, and I think he's a little bit worried because he's actually caught the back of Ollie Behrman very quickly there, George Russell. Just goes to show the difference in pace between the top cars and the midfield, especially when George Russell's on a fresh set of tyres, but he's caught the back of Ollie Behrman. He's having to deal with a little bit of back marker problems where Max Verstappen hasn't yet caught the back of Nico Hülkenberg and is still lapping pretty well, Max Verstappen. Not quite the pace of George Russell. Russell is a second and a half quicker on the last lap. But then will Verstappen just try and go to the end, maybe? He's got, 15.6 seconds, 25 laps. No, I don't... It's a gamble. It's a real gamble if Verstappen tries to go to the end. I don't think he'll be able to get the better of George Russell. Antonelli then also has to pit, though. So maybe Verstappen and Red Bull just kind of settling for second. Doesn't feel very Max Verstappen to settle for second, but could be the play that they're going for. Ollie Behrman does pit for Haas. And Lance Stroll also coming into the pits and possibly retiring that car. He's going very, very slowly indeed, Lance Stroll. If you just look at the track map through turn 6, I know that the Aston Martin doesn't go very quick often, but Bortoletto now making his way past Stroll. Antonelli and Lawson just made their way past the Aston Martin fairly comfortably. Stroll is struggling and is definitely going to have to come to a stop, you would imagine, and retire from this Grand Prix because that does not look like a healthy Aston Martin car. Lindblad is in the pits, though, for Racing Bulls. Let's see what kind of gap they've got. Is Lindblad going to come out still ahead of Bortoletto? I think he is, I think that's the gap that Lindblad and Lawson have got over the rest of the midfield, is just looking completely dominant at this point, the two Racing Bulls cars. And Lawson has actually come out just ahead of Lindblad in all of that. Ooh, that's going to be an interesting one. See whether the Racing Bulls team let them fight or whether they just want them to get it to the end of the Grand Prix. Because Bortoletto's not a million miles away. 4.3 seconds. The gap between Lawson, Lindblad and Bortoletto. A double points finish is available to the Racing Bulls team. Just need to get it right. Oscar Piastri takes that inside line on Charles Leclerc down towards turn 3, and Piastri is going to be able to get back ahead of the Ferrari. Can Charles Leclerc come back at him? Seen this a couple of times already today. Piastri getting the better of Charles Leclerc, and he's done it once more. Piastri up into 4th place. Lando Norris did decide to pit, by the way. We were discussing whether or not he might try and go all the way to the end. Wasn't going to happen. He was lapping a second or so shy of the rest of the top 8. So Lando Norris comes in, comes out. He's in 8th place with Isaac Hadjar 9.5 seconds up the road. So it's going to have to be some pretty spectacular laps from Lando Norris to even gain one more position. Let's have a little look. And actually, Lando Norris getting an overtake done in the pit lane as Lance Stroll was coming in to retire the car and going very, very slowly indeed. And actually, Lando Norris, is it an unsafe release? He backed off to let Franco Colapinto through, but really awkward, has to be said, from Lando Norris. A very awkward pit stop. Had to go past Lance Stroll on the entry and then fight for position with Franco Colapinto on the exit. Not the cleanest of pit stops for Lando Norris and the McLaren team. And here comes Max Verstappen into the pits. Pits from the lead of the race. The gap to George Russell, 10.2 seconds. So will be quite far adrift of Russell, has to be said. The gap was 5 seconds the last time around they had the pit stops. I think Max Verstappen's going to come out nearer 10 seconds behind George Russell this time around. Russell has already made his way around turn 1. Verstappen just getting to the end of the pit lane now. Let's see what kind of pace he's got. Nico Hülkenberg comes around turn 1. That's going to be awkward for Verstappen to have to deal with that Audi car. Fresher tyres than George Russell, though, by 6 laps. Hard compound tyre again for Max Verstappen. It is a 10-second gap, though, between Verstappen and Russell. So it's going to need to be half a second a lap quicker or more from Verstappen. And Kimi Antonelli being told on the radio, let's go, maintain focus. Kimi Antonelli is not yet pitted for a second time. Is Antonelli gambling on just being able to get all the way to the end? 7.7 seconds ahead of his teammate. Colapinto up into 16th place. Alex Albon down to 17th. There's another little move as Colapinto gets the job done on the Williams at turn 3. Antonelli just coming around turn 1 now. 7.5 seconds the gap to George Russell, but Russell was over a second quicker than his teammate, 1.2 seconds quicker than his teammate. And Antonelli, if he pits now, will still come out behind Max Verstappen. So it's looking like Russell, Verstappen, Antonelli will likely be our podium places. Oscar Piastri has like an outside chance. It's actually 23 seconds adrift. So Piastri has like a really outside chance if Antonelli maybe makes a mistake or something. Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton now actually fighting for position, and they're on the same strategy again with one another now. Hamilton on slightly fresher hard compound tyres, but they're probably both going to go to the end on the tyres that they're on. Hamilton has just fallen away from all of this. They tried to be aggressive, Ferrari, and you've got to give it to them. They tried something a little bit different, and Antonelli is going to box. I did think Antonelli going to the end on those would be pretty big gamble. He probably would have still come out third overall, I feel, Antonelli, but Antonelli boxes for tyres nonetheless. 2.6 second stop for Mercedes, pretty decent, and Antonelli watches Max Verstappen's Red Bull car fly by as he finds the end of the pit lane, and Antonelli now rejoins. Where is Piastri? Does rejoin ahead of Piastri. Had to be a good stop from Kimi Antonelli. It was 23 seconds, the gap between Antonelli and Piastri, and he's just about got it done. Piastri a couple of seconds now adrift of Antonelli. Hamilton and Leclerc having a look at one another again, though, and Hamilton actually getting the move done way before they even get to turn 3. Then outbreaks Charles Leclerc, and Hamilton is now back ahead of his teammate and up into 5th place. So Antonelli is now leading Piastri. Piastri 1.3 seconds adrift, but Antonelli on the fresh tyres, you would assume, would have the better pace. Hamilton now 2.5 seconds shy of Piastri. So Hamilton with a P4 possibility, I would say. Virtual safety car. Virtual safety car. Where is the problem? Debris, maybe? Or there is. One of the bollards has been knocked loose. Not going to be super long virtual safety car, as was Alex Albon hit a bollard, maybe? Let's have a look. He does indeed, yeah, just hits the bollard on the inside of turn 3, Alex Albon. Wow. And then virtual safety car was deployed and virtual safety car ending. So just a quick one while they grabbed that bollard that Alex Albon displaced on the inside of turn 3. And we continue on. Hamilton ahead of Leclerc. Leclerc actually having a little look at Lewis Hamilton to see if he can have a go back at his teammate. Hamilton has got the fresher tyres of the two Ferrari cars. And Hamilton will be thinking to himself, I don't really want to be fighting with my teammate because I could definitely catch Oscar Piastri in all of this. See what kind of lap times they've got compared to one another. Hamilton fighting for 4th place as it stands. Keeping an eye on Verstappen's times. Obviously, the virtual safety car doesn't help us massively, but Verstappen is now 9 seconds behind Russell. So Verstappen is closing in, and I'd kind of given up a little bit on it because I thought Verstappen can't be over half a second quicker than Russell per lap. But I'll tell you what, he's doing a very good job of it, is Max Verstappen. And maybe, just maybe, he's going to be able to get it done. Lawson and Lindblad still looking very good for 9th and 10th place. Bortoletto still 5 seconds adrift just outside of the point scoring positions. Lewis Hamilton is quicker than Leclerc and is escaping away from his teammate. Charles Leclerc now outside of overtake range. Hamilton 2.4 seconds adrift of Piastri. Let's look at their last laps. Piastri at 1:15.2. Hamilton at 1:14.3. Again, there was a little bit of virtual safety car nonsense to think about there. So we'll wait until another lap gets completed by those two. Oh, and possibly a little cloud coming towards the Austrian Grand Prix circuit by the looks of things. A little bit of rain at turn 3 would certainly spice things up. That would just be the icing on top of the cake, I think. And here we are then. Antonelli sets the fastest lap of the race, Kimi Antonelli. He's 4.8 seconds adrift of Verstappen. Was half a second quicker than Russell. So was Verstappen as well. Like, Russell is not absolutely flying at the front of this pack, by the way. Russell now having to get past Lindblad and Lawson. I mean, the Racing Bulls team, I know that they're separate teams and all that, but could it be that Russell just gets held up a little bit by Lindblad and Lawson? Maybe they both just use all of their blue flags to let George Russell by. You are allowed to be showing 3 blue flags before you have to let the driver behind you by. So Lindblad and Lawson might just use all 6 of those that they are allowed to use. Max Verstappen 8.4 seconds adrift. It's a weird race for a few of the drivers in the top 8. Hamilton just feels completely out of position. Just really didn't quite nail it in terms of the strategy Ferrari for Lewis Hamilton and that side of the garage today. I think that'll be something that they have to have a little look at. Oops. As I accidentally closed my own stream. It's a good job. But that's the thing, right? When it comes to Lewis Hamilton, I think they'll be a little bit disappointed if they don't manage to get in front of Oscar Piastri. And actually, Oscar Piastri lapping quicker than Lewis Hamilton. Oh, Isaac Hadjar now having a little fight with Charles Leclerc, actually, as we rejoin. Isaac Hadjar side by side with Charles Leclerc as they go down towards turn 4. Bit of a lock-up from Isaac Hadjar and the Red Bull. But gets the inside line, and the Red Bull gets a little bit better of a boost out of the corner as well. And Hadjar gets the move done on Charles Leclerc. It's up into 6th place for Isaac Hadjar. Is on a better tyre set, has to be said, than Charles Leclerc. 9 laps younger tyres on Isaac Hadjar's car. And Charles Leclerc will also be thinking, how on earth did I start on the front row of the grid? And I'm now back down in 7th place. Both Ferraris just... strategy for both Ferraris has been pretty abysmal, hasn't it? Neither of them have looked comfortable at all at any point. They've had to deal with so much traffic as well in the 2 Ferrari cars. Hadjar gets the bet of it. No further investigation for Lando Norris and that pit lane craziness that he had to do when he was overtaking Stroll and fighting Colapinto inside of the pit lane. Lando Norris will continue on without a penalty, is only running in 8th place. Pierre Gasly pitted under the virtual safety car, has come out in 13th place. I'm just having a look if there's any chance of anyone breaking into the points to ruin Lawson and Lindblad's afternoon, but it doesn't look like it. And George Russell has actually gone over the sausage curbs in the runoff area, and that's going to give Max Verstappen a good chunk of time. Verstappen finds 9/10 of a second because of that mistake from George Russell. So Verstappen now 7 seconds adrift. Still 14 laps left to go. So again, just needs to find half a second a lap, which should be a little bit trickier than it's seeming for Max Verstappen. He is absolutely flying around. Lindblad has finally let George Russell go. Lawson is next up for George Russell, and again, isn't going to make it massively easy, I would imagine. Just helping out the Red Bull team a touch. As much as they are separate teams, of course, separate teams. They've got nothing to do with one another. Russell getting past Liam Lawson and is now free of that bit of traffic that he had to deal with. It's actually got quite a nice little bit of clean air to run into now. George Russell, the next driver, track-wise, is Alex Albon, who will be getting lapped for the second time if George Russell does manage to catch the Williams, but he's a little bit up the road. He's now making his way past turn 2 up to turn 3, whilst Russell's still going down the pit straight. Laurent Marquis, again, talking positively about Max Verstappen's. Found 4/10 of a second there, Verstappen, so not quite enough to win this Grand Prix. Needs a little bit more. Charles Leclerc, though, now under pressure from Lando Norris, and it's all going wrong for Charles Leclerc. He lost that position to Isaac Hadjar, and now looks absolutely dead and buried. Those hard compound tyres on Charles Leclerc's car look like an absolute nightmare, and it looks like he's going to lose position to Lando Norris, as Norris is going to move up the inside towards turn 3, is indeed going to get the move done. Uses all the track, Lando Norris, to make sure that he's got that run out of turn 3 as good as possible. Leclerc's probably going to come back at him towards turn 4, you would say. Can't even do that. Charles Leclerc's tyres just not giving him the grip out of turn 3 to be able to actually come back at Lando Norris in turn 4, and Lando Norris going to disappear up the road. So Leclerc now running 8th of the top 8. Been an absolute nightmare for Charles Leclerc. Might as well pit, actually, Charles Leclerc, because he's not actually going to be able to do anything from that position. Charles Leclerc actually kind of holding Pierre Gasly up. Gasly running in 13th place, but putting in better lap times, and Charles Leclerc is going to pit. So yeah, I thought Ferrari might just give up on that strategy, to be honest, because Ferrari already on the worst tyres of the top 8 with Charles Leclerc, and already at the back of that top 8 with Charles Leclerc, so might as well put some new tyres on just in case there is a safety car or something that gives him the opportunity to close into the back of the top 8 again. Let's have a little look. George Russell, 11.1 from Russell, at 10.5 from Verstappen. So 6/10 of a second. And that's exactly what he needs. 4, 5, 6/10 of a second every single lap does Verstappen. Still 12 laps left to go. 5.5 seconds the gap. So he's doing exactly what he needs to, Verstappen, at this point, to maybe come into contention for the win. But George Russell is still leading the Grand Prix and has still got a 5.5 second gap to Verstappen behind. Lewis Hamilton will be the slightly miserable one in 5th place. Thought he might be able to come back at Piastri, to be honest with you, but Hamilton in 5th place, Piastri in 4th, and Hamilton is not going to close that gap to the guys in front of him. It's going to be a 5th place finish for Lewis Hamilton. Similarly, feels like Hadjar, Norris and Leclerc are pretty locked in behind as well. So it's just whether or not Verstappen can close into Russell. Antonelli's lapping pretty well as well. In fact, Antonelli was 6/10 of a second quicker than Verstappen last time around. I have to wait and see. Verstappen has now caught the back of the Racing Bulls cars. Is also an issue for Verstappen, because Lindblad and Lawson, having been dealt with by George Russell, Verstappen now has to deal with them too. But it's actually looking very good for George Russell because lost a couple of tenths of a second or so there. Verstappen behind Lindblad first and foremost, and was only 0.3 of a second quicker. So this is going to really help George Russell, just Verstappen having to deal with these two back markers. And at this rate, George Russell should go on to win the Austrian Grand Prix again. Of course, won it a couple of years ago for Mercedes. Now looking like he's going to be back on the top step of the Austrian Grand Prix podium. Ooh. Yeah, just having a little look. I'm sorry, Max Verstappen fans. I know there's a few of you in the chat, most likely, but it does feel like just looking at the mini sectors, looking at Verstappen having to deal with Lawson now, and looking at actually, I think Russell is holding back a tiny little bit. I'm not sure that Max Verstappen is going to have quite enough to catch up. He might be within a second or so. He might even be just a couple of seconds adrift of George Russell, but I don't think he's going to get himself within striking distance in the final 10 laps of this Grand Prix. Sorry to be the bearer of bad news. Antonelli also behind as well. Antonelli's an interesting one. 3 seconds behind Verstappen. Probably also won't be able to close that gap. Piastri, Hamilton, Hadjar, Norris, Leclerc feel pretty locked in. So do Lawson and Lindblad. So the point scoring places, just a little bit of a parade, it feels like, for the final 8 laps of this Grand Prix, unless there is something that just spices this up. A bit of a safety car, red flag, or something like that could be the difference. But as it stands, again, just looking at the telemetry, yeah, as it stands, I'm gonna give you the bad news that I think the top 10 are pretty much locked into where they're gonna be at the end of this. Antonelli, 3.3 seconds behind Verstappen, 8.8 to Piastri, 3.9 to Hamilton in 5th place. Bortoletto closing in. No, 5.6 seconds adrift. Nico Hülkenberg will finish in 12th place. Gasly, maybe 13th. Might be able to get that up into 12th. I think the only possible position change might be down there in 12th place. Let's have a gander at Gasly's pace. Oh, yeah, Gasly about half a second to 0.8 quicker than Nico Hülkenberg. So could definitely close in that 2.4 seconds. Gasly might steal 12th from Nico Hülkenberg. I think that might be the only change that occurs, to be honest with you. Behrman is in 14th, Colapinto 15th, Ocon 16th, all around, 10 plus seconds away from one another. Albon 2.9 seconds adrift of Ocon, but lapping very similar pace and both on fairly old hard compound tyres. And then Fernando Alonso running at the back of the pack is over a minute down on Alex Albon ahead. And it could actually be lapped by even Alex Albon. I think Colapinto just making his way past Fernando Alonso. So the only drivers that haven't lapped Alonso are Ocon and Albon. Goodness me. Why is Leclerc on softs? Ferrari decided to pit for another time just because Charles Leclerc was already losing pace. Got overtaken by Lando Norris and was on the oldest tyres of the top 8 and was in 8th place. So just had enough time to pit, come out in 8th place still and get the soft compound tyres on. So Leclerc maybe gambling on a bit of a safety car, possibly. That's all he could really do because he was going to finish 8th if he stayed on the same tyres. Might as well finish 8th on a fresh set of softs. I don't even think it was a fresh set, was it? No, slightly scrubbed set of softs that he was able to put on. 4.2 seconds then the gap between Russell and Verstappen. Verstappen has dealt with those midfieldy backmarker cars a couple of laps ago, but the gap just hasn't quite closed at the rate he needs it to. Was 0.7 of a second quicker last time around, but because he lost those 3 or 4 tenths just behind Lindblad, and then again lost another couple of laps, 3 or 4 tenths behind Lawson, now having to deal with Alex Albon and traffic once again. George Russell, though, to be fair, is being held up by Esteban Ocon. Just not sure it's going to play out. And as I say, I think the top 10 is pretty much locked into where it's going to be. Let's have a look. Russell has got past Ocon. Verstappen has got past Albon. So they have dealt with the back markers they were dealing with at the time. It's below 4 seconds now, the gap. 3.8 seconds. Just feels like they need, like, I feel like Verstappen needs 5 more laps. And then it would be, like, really interesting. But unless there's a mistake from George Russell. We did see George Russell lose half a second or so with a mistake at turn 9. So I have to wait and see. Antonelli also within 3 seconds of Verstappen. So Verstappen still needs to keep him at bay. Piastri running in 4th. Hamilton a distance in 5th. They're on the same hard compound tyres, both 24 laps old. Hadjar in 6th place, 5 seconds adrift of Hamilton, though. Lando Norris is actually gaining on Isaac Hadjar, it has to be said. That is the... Actually, it's done fairly well. Lando Norris has closed in about 0.3 of a second over the last few laps and is now within striking distance. Hey, maybe we will get a move in the top 10. Maybe it's Lando Norris who will have a go at Isaac Hadjar, and just as I say that, Lando Norris goes wide at turn 3 and makes a mistake and loses 4.5 of a second. Hadjar will be under pressure from Lando Norris, I feel like, maybe in the last lap. We're looking at another last lap Lando maneuver here in Austria. Of course, picked up his first ever podium with that incredible flying lap at the end of the Austrian Grand Prix when Lewis Hamilton picked up a 5-second penalty. That 5 seconds added to Lewis's race time, just slotted in behind Lando Norris, picking up his first podium due to that. Verstappen, 11.4, Russell 11.5, so again finds a 10th. Antonelli, actually the quicker of the top 3, found 0.4 of a second to Max Verstappen, is 2 seconds adrift. It's just not quite lined up here in Austria. I feel like if there was 5 more laps, it would be a very tight battle between Russell, Verstappen, and maybe even Antonelli, all with an opportunity to run at one another and fight for the final few laps for the win. But there is only 3 laps left once George Russell comes around these final couple of corners. They should just add 5 laps to the race. Well, I mean, it would be an interesting maneuver from the stewards and the FIA if they did just go, you know what, this would be really good if it was 5 laps longer, so we're just going to keep going. Let's have a look at Lando Norris. Nah, that mistake at turn 3 has cost him. He's outside of striking range from Isaac Hadjar once again. Won't get that boost button this lap. 1.4 seconds the gap now. So 3 laps left for Isaac Hadjar to hold on to 6th place there. Charles Leclerc's going pretty well. 110.6 from him, but not actually as fast as Kimi Antonelli, who's in 3rd spot. Kimi's gaining on match pretty significantly. 3 laps left to go. Is there a last lap maneuver from Kimi Antonelli possibly on the cards? I'll tell you what, Kimi Antonelli's found... I feel like as soon as he's been able to see the back of Max Verstappen's car, suddenly Kimi Antonelli has started to come into contention. 1.3 seconds the gap to Verstappen. He needs to be within boost range next lap, though, is the real thing. Because there's 2 laps left. So it's going to be like a proper last lap maneuver from Antonelli if it does happen. 2.6 seconds the gap between Russell and Verstappen. That feels safe. But then I thought the Antonelli gap was a bit too much to do in 10 laps. But Antonelli proving me wrong. He was 0.6 of a second quicker than Verstappen last lap. Kimi Antonelli, maybe those hard compound tyres just falling off a cliff inside of the Red Bull car. Kimi Antonelli, 1 second behind Verstappen, 0.9. If he can remain there around turn 9, he will get the boost on the final lap of the Grand Prix. Can Antonelli break Red Bull hearts? The home of Red Bull, the Austrian Red Bull ring. They would have loved to see Max Verstappen win this Grand Prix. Hasn't quite got the pace to do so. Looked like second place was going to be the prize for him. But Antonelli now looking maybe a third place consolation prize for Max Verstappen after all. Kimi Antonelli comes around the final couple of corners, is within boost range. So Antonelli will get that extra little bit of battery power this lap. Can he do it? George Russell flying around on the final lap. Fernando Alonso ahead of them. And here we go then. Will Antonelli be within touching distance? Not into turn 3, but I'll tell you what, Antonelli's right underneath the rear wing of the Red Bull car. And we'll have a little look at him down towards turn 4, surely. Verstappen versus Antonelli on the final lap of the Grand Prix. Verstappen moves to the left-hand side of the track, covers off the inside curb, and Antonelli not quite close enough to strike for now. What about through the middle sector? We've seen a few maneuvers through here. Antonelli not close enough this time around. And Verstappen doing just enough to make sure that Kimi Antonelli stays at arm's length. George Russell now going down towards turn 9 to win for the second time at the Austrian Grand Prix. George Russell comes around turn 9 and through turn 10 as well. Verstappen has been able to hold off Antonelli through turn 9 and will hold off Antonelli as they come across the line. Verstappen does just about take second place. Antonelli finishes 0.3 seconds behind. Again, we just needed 5 more laps there. Would have been very tasty between Russell, Verstappen and Antonelli, but as it finishes, they're the top 3 in that order. George Russell wins, Verstappen in second, Antonelli third place. Piastri comes home a distant 4th place, as to be said, 20 seconds adrift of the top 3. Hamilton a disappointing 5th, considering the Ferrari started P2 and P3. Hamilton actually got the better of Leclerc, though. Hadjar comes home P6. Lando Norris eventually comes home P7. Charles Leclerc will finish in 8th place. And the Racing Bulls have absolutely dominated the midfield. It's a double point scoring finish for Lawson and Lindblad. Their closest competitors, Bortoletto and Hulkenberg, who finish in 11th and 12th. Gasly just about comes home in 13th. Almost managed to get past Nico Hulkenberg right at the end there. Behrman, Colapinto, Ocon, Albon and Alonso are your other non-points finishers, with Lance Stroll, Carlos Sainz, Sergio Perez and Valtteri Bottas retiring from the Grand Prix. Thank you guys so much for watching. I was very entertained by that Austrian Grand Prix. It certainly zigged and zagged, as much as George Russell felt like he was dominant for the most of it. Did have a few questions to be asked of him, but it's very solid indeed. Let's have a tiny little look at the championship board for you just before we let you watch the podium ceremony with George Russell and the Mercedes team. Antonelli still leads the championship, 171 points for him. George Russell now moves back into second place above Lewis Hamilton. Still a 40-point gap, though, between the two Mercedes cars at the top of the championship. 40 points also being what Mercedes will take home from this weekend. Lewis Hamilton drops to third. He's on 125 points. Piastri actually gets a little bit of a double jump. He gets ahead of Lando Norris and Charles Leclerc. Lando Norris remains where he is in P5, and Leclerc is actually the big loser, drops down to B6, losing a couple of places. Verstappen stays where he is in P7, but closes that gap to the Ferraris and McLarens ahead of him. And Isaac Hadjar, 8 points for him, puts him on 42, and once again puts him above the midfield pack. Gasly in 9th, Lawson in 10th. 11 points the gap between Gasly and Lawson. Forget that podium for Gasly really does help him out in that midfield battle. Behrman in 11th, Colapinto 12th. Lindblad gets an extra point on the board, but not quite enough to move his overall position. Sainz, Albon, Ocon, Bortoletto, Alonso, Hulkenberg, Bottas, Perez, and of course Stroll at the bottom of the championship stay where they are. And no change in the Constructors' Championship at all. Mercedes still lead it. Ferrari second, McLaren third, Red Bull Racing in fourth. Alpine still the kings of the midfield at the moment, but Racing Bulls closing that gap a touch. They remain in 6th place. Haas are in 7th, Williams are in 8th, Audi in 9th with 2 points, Aston Martin in 10th with 1, and Cadillac the only team yet to score points this season. Whew. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you could hit the like button, that'd be absolutely amazing. Subscribe to the channel if you are new to the channel. We're live for 4 different sessions over the course of next weekend. And of course, the pre-race stream over on the Crash Happy podcast. Thank you guys so much once more. And I will see you in a week's time for the Silverstone Great British Grand Prix.